And here we are for take number 59. I mean, episode number 59 of Stream of
It feels
Thought.
like take number 59.
Jesus, and we begin the conversation by talking about books of all things.
They're so exciting, books!
And then when you come across one that just is so awful, do you end up setting it down and walking away? Maybe that's the better decision. We discuss.
Yes, and then we talk about people. Do you love them or do you hate them? Everybody, I believe, feels a little bit the same, but some more heavily than others on certain sides of the spectrum.
And then we round things out by talking about our place in this corporate system that we're encouraged to participate in. Are we basically zombies just walking around being part of this like bland society without any sort of sense of freedom or liveliness in the world that we're living in?
And then how do we get there? Why is it that people just end up in a place that they just don't like? Or how we just, it's just so much that my brain can't handle it.
Mindfuck.
Yes, mindfuck. With that being said, episode number 59, Stream of Thought. We hope you enjoy.
When you start actually, are we doing a sound check first?
I thought we could just go straight into it.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. As long as we have it on our mind that we're
I don't know why.
aware of sound issues. Because that is the song that never ends, my friend. Just goes on and on.
Lamb Chop. Did you ever watch Lamb Chop growing up?
All the time, man.
Song that never
I had the Lamb Chop puppet,
ends.
believe it or not, growing up.
I saw like a video of that on There was like a thing on Facebook. It was like, remember this song? And I clicked on it, and of course I had to watch it. And I completely forgot about that show almost.
Yeah, it was.
We sang it on the
super
bus
memorable.
one time. I remember.
Oh my goodness!
I remember we.
Was that track?
No, It was. This is when I was in like middle school. We were at like youth group, and we went to like Laser Quest one time. We were in like 6th or 7th grade, and or maybe it was a class field trip. We wouldn't take a bus for a youth group event. I just remember being on a bus, and we're singing that song, and somebody is like. Got their hand on the not the window, but a part of the bus in the back, and they're just boom, boom, boom. That says the song that, and everyone's singing it, and I can only imagine how much the bus driver must have wanted to just down a bottle of scotch and put a pistol to his head or something like that. Because I would be so annoyed at that shit if I was a bus driver.
Dude, man, God bless bus drivers. I feel like they're some of the most underrated human beings out there. If you can withstand a bus full of middle schoolers.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, and they do it every single day, too. I mean, you think about teachers as being the ones with the balls of steel, so to speak. I mean, these bus drivers really...
A lot of them, though, it's not like they're permanent. It's like a thing on the side.
Yeah, a lot of them do it after
it's a
retirement.
part-time job.
I know a couple of them.
You're only driving the bus, 2 hours, 3 hours out of the day, driving kids around.
But I mean, how stressful is that? That you gotta be like fully aware of everything that's going on.
Don't fuck up at the railroad crossing.
Exactly, the railroad crossing.
Stop the bus, throw open the doors, look both ways a couple times.
Yep.
And then go.
That's more of a Glen Ellen thing.
No, it's the law.
No. But I'm saying a thing to be concerned about because there aren't.
My son cut his finger on the bus. What? Like, I could totally see a Glen Ellen mom or a dad getting pissed off about like the safety conditions inside of a bus. It's like, it's a fucking bus. Maybe your kid shouldn't have had his hand out the window.
There aren't even
touching
seatbelts.
the branches as we're going by. You know, I don't know.
So I know I was like ranting a little bit about the quality of movies now versus then. But I was gonna say, kind of on that snarky note, I just finished reading the one of the novels that because I had said I was going to start reading in 2018, right? Yeah. So I just finished a couple of days ago reading one of the first novels that Brooks from Minnesota had given me to lend. And like he was raving about this book. He's like, "Oh, it's such a great book, you know," and the series just gets better and better and better. As I'm reading this book, it's called Mistborn by I think his name is Brandon Sanderson.
Oh yeah, Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah. And so
the fantasy. This is when you said that all the fantasy books are the same.
Yeah. And so I mean, it was enjoyable. It was a very unique plot development type thing that, you know, it was a unique premise, right? There were a lot of sort of things that differentiated it from the standard traditional fantasy novel. And so I was into it, and then I made the mistake about 2/3 through the book of looking at the author's bio, and suddenly
it all clicked.
Everything just sort of warped, and the enjoyment that I was receiving prior to, because I thought that some of the terminology was kind of like interesting, right? It was almost prudish. It was very PG-13. And I'm like,
oh my gosh!
For a fantasy novel, like it's super like, and I'm not just talking about like sex or anything like that. I'm just talking about like violence, like descriptions of like, you know, scenes, like how dirty or how, you know, realistic they portray the. And
so the display, so it could have been sharper.
Yeah, it could have been more visceral, right?
Okay.
It could have engaged the senses a little more.
I know where this is going. Keep going.
And so I was wondering, like, you know, I didn't really think anything of it as I was reading it, and then 2/3 through, I flipped to the back.
Can I guess how old this person is?
It's not about his age, but
I want to say, like, I want you to flip open to the author and then see his photo, and it's like a 12-year-old kid with big ass glasses and a bowl haircut.
The bowl haircut, I think, is right. But no, he's like a 30-something, 40-something-year-old, could be a little bit older.
Okay.
Mormon.
Got it.
From Utah. And suddenly, and he's apparently like this renowned writer within Mormon circles. And so I'm just like, oh my goodness. And you have to understand a little bit of the Mormon culture, right? It's
super polite anytime they come up to the door.
Mormons?
Is that what those are the ones that come up to the door with the tie, the short sleeved button-down shirt and the tie?
No, those are Seventh-day Adventists that come proselytized.
You're right.
No, yeah, Mormons were the religion that originally allowed multiple wives,
right?
And that's since been abandoned as an ideological.
I'm just going to do that without going Mormon.
Yeah, right. But they primarily reside in Utah. Throughout American history, they've been a relatively discriminated against religious group, but their ideology is pretty conservative. And so suddenly that clicked. I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, that's why this writing seems so prudish. It's not going to reach that level of like you can smell the blood in your nostrils, kind of like vivid, where it just brings a book to life.
Yes.
I think that differentiates it a little bit. But just realizing sort of his backstory totally colored the way that I read the rest of the book, is because just little things about, you know, there was a weird scene where it's like, I'm not even going to go into it, but just weird stuff that was just like, it was very, very
So all of a sudden you're
prudish.
reading this book through a new lens.
I'm reading it through a new lens.
I totally thought...
And it kind of ruined the story for me,
I
knowing
totally
his background.
thought that you were going to be like, and the reason that the writing wasn't so visceral is because he's a 16-year-old kid from some... I thought it was maybe a teenager or something, and then you're like, what the hell?
Teenagers can write
incredible
works
I
of
know, says the man who published a book when he was a teenager.
I mean, I think childhood imaginations are some of the most incredible things.
So do you think that... Okay, what do you have a certain pattern when you read a book? Meaning, do you usually read about the author before or after? Is there a certain formula you follow when
believe it or not, I'll only read about the author or acknowledgments or stuff like that if something strikes me out about the writing. Like, I generally
do some further research.
I can appreciate a good book for what it is without knowing their bio and just be like, this is a good author. But if they're a pretty decent author, but something just is kind of off or whatever, and that's only because I've just read so many fantasy books that it's like you can sort of get that trend, but then you can also sense when something's not like totally, something's just off a little bit. And so then my curiosity gets piqued, and I'm like, okay, well, who is this person who's writing it? And yeah, I mean, and this guy also, I think it was his self-bio, but it like puffed himself up a lot, and I don't like... A lot of fantasy writers are like that, where they think that, you know, they've created their own universe, so now they're the king of that universe, and there's an ego trip that goes on for a lot of fantasy writers.
Yeah, I think Stan Lee is the exception.
Stan Lee, yeah. I don't know, man.
But that's like graphic novels, and
that's
like a different kind of tier.
But throughout my head, as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I start out, and I don't necessarily do this too often, but just in my head, I'm like, is this an A quality book, a B quality book? Is it, like where does it fall in the tiers of books? And as I'm reading, it starts out at an A, right? Like everything's very solid.
Mm-hmm.
I catch a typo early on, so that's not a good sign.
I love catching typos.
I'm just like, oh boy. And then,
but I mean, the typo.
It's not. That was not a big deal. No, it did not
yeah.
interfere. Like it happens, right? Every single book, no matter how well edited, is going to have one or two.
It's
typos.
like the goofs in movies when something weird happens, where like you see the cameraman in a reflection, or like in Game of Thrones, when they're pulling the dragon out of the water. And in the background, you see a white pickup truck, like on a road.
Oh, that's right.
Like, weird stuff like that.
Yes.
That there's just you just can't control everything.
It's kind of like a fun Easter egg, and it doesn't really take you out of the moment or anything like that. But it's just like,
or when a word is omitted and the sentence doesn't make sense, your brain plugs it in, and then you realize it's not there at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was not an issue at all. But then as I continued reading it, sort of it almost became a predictable formula in the way that it wasn't really throwing any new stuff, and it had like 2 or 3 secrets, and it just stretched them out the entire book. It's like you had to just keep reading. It's like there are 2 or 3 points of information that once filled in, suddenly the whole story is like how this is going to go and end and all that. But it's like they just kept dragging it out. Whereas most good fantasy novels will have, it's like a water wheel of constantly uncovering new facts and information and expanding this world. Whereas this, it was like it started with a premise, they stretched that premise out till the end, and there wasn't really a lot of building.
It's not rewarding if you don't know something, and then a few chapters later, that's uncovered. But in those few chapters, something new came up, and then you want to keep
it builds upon itself. Whereas this, it was just like they were sort of lumbering along till the conclusion. And really good descriptions of battle scenes and stuff like that. A lot of people really struggle with writing about action, how action looks. I thought that was good, but just by the end, I'm just like it's fallen from like an A- to a B+, and it's like once it falls into the B category, it's not a book I can recommend to anybody else.
What are your thoughts on finishing a book if you don't enjoy it? If you're reading a book and you do not enjoy it, do you believe you need to finish it because you started it and give it a fair shot? Maybe something changes near the end. Mm-hmm. Yes, you do.
Yes, I have an issue with, for me anyway, it's like I can't leave something incomplete. I want to know how the story ends, because sometimes you get the pleasant surprise, and sometimes there is that author who's able to like pull out a saving win at the end and make the book totally worth it, because they bring in all these different plot pieces. And then there are those books that do both, that is like a fun roller coaster ride and has just a really exciting conclusion that just blows your mind. I think of, as much as people like to criticize him, Dan Brown, when he did Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and a couple of other ones as well. Those are books that I've read 2 or 3 times all the way through, because it's just, his descriptions are just so alive.
It's a fun book.
You can put yourself in there. It's just such a colorful world, and there's like a million different pieces moving, and it's like each time you read it through, you sort of notice something new. It's like, oh, I didn't realize
That's how I felt about
I love
2001:
that, the
A
layering.
Space Odyssey. I've read that book probably 5 times at least. It was a book I had to read in college, and I remember one time I was reading it, and the first chapter, I was just like, wow, like, man, I can't believe I was truly savoring every bit of it. And the first chapter is just about, if people are familiar with the book, when like around the time that apes or monkeys or whatever you want to call it were evolving into men. And it's just like, oh, I'm reading this, I'm like, I can't. It was one of those where it's like, oh, I need to just take a break right now and just really absorb all this that I'm getting. And I just never picked up on certain things the first couple times I read it.
Yeah.
It was amazing. But I have a contrasting opinion. If there's a book that I'm just not feeling it, fuck it. I'm just going to close it up and put it away, because I'm not going to waste my time with it.
Yeah, that's fair.
I felt that way only about 2 books. And I just like, the one book that I was reading it, and fairly quickly, I just wasn't really feeling it. I just felt like it was just a lot of talking. Like there wasn't really anything.
What genre was it? Fantasy?
This was like spiritual, like self-help. This was a Tony Robbins book.
Okay.
And I just was like, I've read and I've watched videos on this stuff, and I'm a fan of his, but this book, I just felt like it was a lot of just talking and talking and talking. And maybe I'll try it again and I'll think differently, but I just didn't get it. And halfway through, I put it away. Another book was one that Neil recommended to me that had like this combo effect or topic regarding like hip hop and race.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just way more. There wasn't as much of a music element as I thought there was going to be. It was more just again background on race and kind of how music had. And I just was like, this. I'm just not feeling it. This does not interest me anymore. It's not that I don't care about it, but this particular book just. I'm just going to close it up.
And I think there's a distinction, too, because I was just thinking in regards to enjoyment reads, like fantasy, sci-fi, adventure, like fun fictional books, right?
Yes.
As opposed to learning books. If I'm going to read an educational book, it better damn well be
Yes.
worth it. Otherwise, I will drop it after 10 pages.
Yes.
There was a book that I had started reading, and this was back in, I think it was late high school, early college. I picked up this book on Templars, hoping that I could learn about the history of Templar. All it was effing conspiracy theories and shit like that. And I'm like, I got it at half price books, and I'm like, I just wasted, $5 on a book that is just total garbage, because instantly, just factual things and just being super vague about, factually inaccurate, and then being super vague about the rest of it. And it's just like, this is not and that's why I'm super grateful for my education over the years, is because it's taught me how to like distinguish between a quality source of material and a not quality. But if it has to do with information and they're not presenting it in a very edible way, I'm gonna abandon it, because there are people out there who are able to communicate in a universal manner, like as opposed to using jargon or in their own.
Some too are written specifically for people in that field. It's not meant for
Public
a general
consumption,
audience.
Yeah.
It's meant for that particular industry
For sure.
or field or whatever it is. But yeah, I remember reading something where it said, don't feel bad about not finishing a book. And I've always kept that in mind. But yeah, between stories and information, those are totally different. I would give stories a shot.
Yeah.
It's more tolerable to give them a shot than factual information.
Because, you figure if it's published, it's got to be, at the very least, a decent story. There's got to be something redeeming about it.
Somebody had to have written a check hoping they would make money off of this.
So, at the very least, the person who wrote the check
Yeah.
found something worthwhile in this venture.
Yeah.
So, it's like, okay, even if it's the dumbest story out there, books tend to have more redeeming value than I feel like a lot of movies that try to go for that. But regardless, I finished it, and there were 2 more books after it that were part of this trilogy. And I was like, not going to do it. And so I read the synopsis for the next 2 books, and I'm like, it's like I literally had just read all 600 remaining
transitioning
pages.
to this author, kind of, what is a defining feature or the overall theme for Mormonism?
What is the overall theme for Mormonism?
I'm asking you because you're the theologian.
I don't get what you're asking.
What separates Mormonism from the standard?
It's a more U.S. centric Christianity, where like the United States is the chosen land and the chosen people. It's kind of an updated version of Christianity.
Got it.
And it comes from, like, basically there was a prophet in America who was
Jim Jones.
I can't remember his name.
Kidding.
No, I can't remember. For the life of me, I feel horrible about this. But he found golden plates, and these golden plates were transcribed with, according to the Mormonism, with sort of updated rules as to how Christians should live.
They found this in the United States?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they migrated from the Midwest all the way out to Utah, basically set up their community there because they were persecuted the whole way through. Like, they couldn't find a place in the U.S. where they would be allowed, their ideas would be allowed to like be in mainstream Christianity. So they just founded their own.
Why do you think that they were ostracized?
Because like any other, what do they call it? Cults that end up breaking off of the mainstream of Christianity or whatever the dominant religion is. You're going to have people who want to eliminate any deviant threads of religious thought.
Got it.
Like, it's a war, man.
Yeah.
It's no one.
Well, we
no
talked
one
about it last
speaks of
time.
But
Everything has to be
like,
right or wrong.
Well, and I mean, it's a
Good
war even on
evil.
my side of the progressive, what I like to consider like loving Christianity. We believe that we'll conquer this hate-filled Christianity, and that it's not going to be a literal war, but it's going to be a war where love defeats hate, which is like the paradox of the Bible. We believe at its core, whereas a lot of these other more conservative Christianity think that it's going to be a literal war where they have to like take up arms against the heathens, aka you and me.
You're right.
To bring about God's kingdom on earth.
Okay.
Because we are the Satan incarnate.
There is a new show that I think is coming out or has already started. It's a mini series, Waco, about the Waco, Texas.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
This was like the early '90s, but this has to do with like cults, and then all of a sudden, like, and they have, I guess, a shit ton of arms, and the federal government got involved, and like
there was a shootout.
Shit ton of, there was a shootout, and a bunch of people got killed. People, I think, they had threatened, like, if you try and leave, we will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that actually happened. I can't recall.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with the events, but it's like, wow, people are fucking crazy.
Now, I will say that I think the name cult gets a bad rap because cult is not what you think of when you think of a cult in recent American history, right? Where it's people who will force you to drink the Kool-Aid and kill yourself, right? Like, they think that's a cult. A cult is anything that says that a certain core element of mainstream Christianity is wrong. Or in the case of Christianity itself, Christianity began as a cult because early Christians still believe themselves as part of the Jewish faith. They just believe that the prince that was promised, the coming king, was Jesus. And so they said they still adhered to Torah, and it tried to be sections of this early Christian community were considered themselves Jewish. I mean, there was no distinction between them Jews, but the Jewish mainstream rejected them and said, if you believe that Jesus is your savior, like come down to, or like God incarnate or whatever, you can't be a part of Judaism. And so they were sort of like not excommunicated, but they were like booted culturally to the side. And so that was what defined them as a cult, right? Is that they were a pariah in society's eyes. And any cult that has, any cult will eventually become a religion itself if it gains enough followers. Because it goes from counter mainstream practices to everyone does it. It's like the majority.
Yeah.
But anyway, little deviation.
Speaking of deviations, I'm just going to steer the topic onto something new. So I'm at work today, and the theme of this story is just not accepting something to be, like, factually true. Like, what? I'm telling you this. Yeah. Why aren't you listening to me?
Welcome to my world, man. Welcome to my world.
There's two different oranges, like the fruit, right?
Yeah.
And this woman says, okay, so first of all, I hear someone say, excuse me, sir, and I'm about maybe 15 feet away, and I look around and I don't see anybody. Sir. I fucking hate it when people, like, yell. Like, you can take a few steps. You don't have to be right next to me, but take a few steps so you're not yelping at me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I thought these were on sale. The paper says $2.49. These are $3.49. I said, oh, it's a different type of oranges are $2.49. It's the I don't know, it's pronounced Cara or Cara. It's a different type of orange than the navel orange. She's like, no, orange is $3.49. I'm like, no, it's a different type of orange. And And I'm walking around. I'm like, I think they're somewhere over here, but we were out of them. Like, no, we don't have them. Like, no, it's the carrot. And she wouldn't accept. Hang on. So she wouldn't accept the fact that the oranges. I don't even know what was going on in her brain. Because it's like she didn't even want to hear me tell her that. She just had it in her brain that like this
not
is it.
Computing.
Yeah, it did not compute. Like it wasn't. It was just so weird, and she got mad at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, we don't have any. And when I told her this information, she got upset because she wanted me to say, "Oh, you're right. These are actually the ones on sale," but. Because I immediately had said like, "Oh, these are not it. It's a different kind." She's like, "No, you don't understand what her brain was like. You don't understand what I'm saying. These are the ones on sale." I'm like, "No, you don't understand what I'm saying. These are different types. Mm-hmm. It's a different orange that's on sale." Mm-hmm. And she got all flustered and upset, and she started walking around, and I was like, "Fucking whatever." I just walked away. I was like, "I'm not gonna deal with this lady." And I look, and I see her walking out of the store, and she left. Then, like 15 minutes later, I see her back in the store. Like, okay, take your time to like go cool off, whatever. And I see her looking at grapefruit, and I'm joking around with my coworker Sandy, like, should I go tell this bitch, hey, those aren't oranges, that's grapefruit, dumbass.
Wow.
Like, why? I'm telling you, I don't understand why you don't believe me. One, I fucking work here, okay? Like, two, I've been at the register where I know like this has come up before, and even if I didn't know, as a result of a few instances. I now know like this is the one that's on sale, this is the one that's not on sale. Okay? And like three, I fucking work here. Like I know what it is. Why I don't understand why aren't you believing me? I'm sorry that this is a big ordeal for you, but I'm telling you this as a fact and you don't even want to hear it from me right now.
Yeah. You know, goodness.
And that's not the first time that's happened. That's just an instance that stood out to me because it was just so blatantly obvious. But I was just like, what is wrong with you, lady?
You know, I'm like laughing to myself right now because I'm just thinking, not to the specific instance itself, but I'm somebody who generally I consider myself to hate people.
Oh, yet, I was thinking about that the other day.
And yet I manage them pretty well. I feel like you like people, you just cannot manage people. In a setting like that.
It's just I fucking hate retail. I hate being I hate even the other day I was in Walmart and I hated being inside Walmart.
Yeah, because
it's not like I'm working there.
But I think that at your heart you genuinely like care and want to be around people. You like socializing.
It's just
you like
that
being in a community.
I hate wasting my time on frivolous matters that do not deserve the attention of time.
Well, what would you be doing otherwise?
What do you mean?
Scanning grapefruits or something? Like, if you weren't helping her.
No.
Like, it's like, do you have stuff that you got to get done before the end of the day before you can leave?
That happens all the time.
Really?
That happens all the time. I don't have a problem helping people. Like if she was more coherent and being like, okay. Like, it's just, I just have no time for bullshit. For example, if someone's like, hey, where is, do you guys have any, white bread? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, we're all out. Well, what do you mean? I mean, I came here, this is the second time. Like, dude, what the fuck do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have any.
I feel
do you want me to suck your dick and tell you everything is going to be okay? Because I don't have time for this right now.
Yeah.
You asked me a question, I gave you an answer, and now you're getting all upset about it. What else do you want?
Yeah.
Like, what? Tell me what it is that I know you want the white bread. We don't have any. I'm sorry. There's 8 other choices you can make.
Huh.
It's just little things like that. You know?
Okay, maybe I should reframe it because I feel like, yeah,
people are so fucking stupid.
When it comes to random people and dealing with random people, like I just don't care enough about their like whatever like. Or I don't care enough about my ego to just be like, okay, whatever. I'm going to be encountering them for maybe 60 seconds. I'm gonna put aside my whatever and be like, all right, I'm gonna try and like make you happy without even registering it as to how much of an inconvenience it is for me.
Right.
But whereas for you, I feel like it's I don't know if that makes sense. Where you tend to be that way more with you don't care if you're inconvenienced by a close friend, right? It's like you're willing to do the opposite, where it's like you don't like being inconvenienced by strangers, but you don't mind being inconvenienced by close friends, whereas I don't mind being inconvenienced by strangers, where I kind of mind being inconvenienced on a repetitive basis by
it's not, I think
those closer to me.
The being inconvenienced is relative. You know, if I'm in the middle of something and someone needs help, I'll totally help them out. But if it's just like something that is out of my control and they get upset at me,
well, like
about
responding
it,
to that, like yeah, exactly, the unwarranted criticism of you. It's like you can't do anything different.
Yes,
it's
I can't do anything else about this.
Yeah, yeah. It's super frustrating, but I mean that's human nature, man. Like I got over that years ago. Like people like to put the blame on others because it helps alleviate their own stress, and I just am able to let it go. I don't take it personally.
Yeah, it's just so fucking stupid.
It is no, and like in the moment, it's just because your initial reaction is like to clench up, right? And go into your defensive crouch and be like, "Well, screw you! Like you're absolutely wrong, 100%." And here you have to take it.
When I was at Walmart, I was okay. So you remember that story I told you where I tried to buy boxers from JCPenney?
Oh yeah,
fucking six-pack of boxers being like $42. I walked away and put it back on the thing. I was like, what the fuck? And I go to Walmart, find the exact same thing with tax, it was $18. I was like, this is kind of pricey. And I was like, oh, well, it's like $3 a pair, so whatever. I need it. Okay, whatever. I'm just like, I can't believe this is so much cheaper over here. And it was the same thing with that stupid shit saying odor technology bullshit, whatever. Then I realized it was like on all of the packages, so it wasn't just like a
okay.
Like it's just a new branding thing for all of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe they just put some Febreze on it before they put it in the plastic. I don't know. But I'm at Walmart, and I would love to, and I think about this sometimes. Like the other day when I was at work, I got lifted up on this thing because I had to put a sign up. And when you get lifted high in the air, you get an aerial view of what the aisles look like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because when you're in the aisles, you don't see how ridiculous everything looks. For the same, when I was in college, our house would go on the roof sometimes, and we can see people circling around for a parking space. And it just looks so stupid. But when I was in Walmart, and I'm waiting for, I'm walking up to the self-checkout, and there's a line, and I say out loud to myself, Jesus fucking Christ, like, you gotta be kidding me. And so I turn around, I walk away, I'm like, it's fucking Saturday right now, I'm at Walmart, should I just walk away? I'm already here, I need this, I'm just gonna wait. And just, you can probably find a better vocabulary word than I can, but it made me look at human beings as like I took a step back and observed human nature and culture. For example, everyone has these little individual lives, but they all center at the supermarket where you get whatever it is that you need, and then you go back and you have to go through these lanes to check out, and just kind of the macro view of how things work. And I thought to myself, man, I would love to sit next to an alien and have them tell me what they think of how things work around here. Because then I also think of like the human body and blood cells and everything like that. And I think of how like the highways and going to work, and you think of the aortas and the blood going through and pumping out. And you think how rhythmic everything is in culture, in terms of like running errands and going to work and everything. And I think of, again, like everyone leaving their house to get into their car, to go onto the highway, to go into this one place. And again, I think of human anatomy, of everything has its little niche in the bigger picture. And in that particular moment, I was just like, I hate being this person right now inside this retail outlet. But I'm kind of I'm just rambling right now. But again, I love seeing things from a different angle, a literal angle. Like when I was at the store and I could see people at the aisles because I'm 8 feet above the ground.
Yep.
And just seeing people push their little carts and go left. And then it's like, you know how like ants, they smell each other with the antenna and then they move about their way?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, we just almost bumped into each other with our carts, but go left, right, no, okay, and now we're on our separate ways.
There's like a psychic
Yes.
connection that
Yes,
we have.
yes.
And that was the part about seminary that was kind of a mind fuck in that regard. Was we deconstructed societal norms, right? And so we spent 3 years basically disassembling exactly what you were just talking about, this weird sort of hive mind structure where we're also so caught up in our own worlds that we don't even see just how robotic
Yes.
our lives have become.
Yes.
in just it's predictable, it's routine, it's just over and over again, and a lot of times we lose that sort of freedom and creativity that we think of our early ancestors having, right? The ability to think outside the box. We're all stuck literally inside this little box in our phones. Everything has sort of been shrunk down to like so individualized that we can't really see how we are interacting with one another and just how mechanical everything is. It's and that's how, I mean, it sounds a little leftist propaganda, but I mean the corporations are very well attuned to human psychology and behavior, and so they utilize those facts and that information in order to best control general human behavior, buying patterns, just shopping behaviors, that sort of thing. I mean, the fact that you have shelves themselves are micromanaged in regards to where you place the products that you want sold the most. There's a particular place where you're supposed to put everything in order to maximize the likelihood that somebody in their brain is going to be like, I don't really need it, but it's there, convenience, all that sort of thing fits into that system. And it's all very, very well disguised, and it started with this sort of advertising revolution that we had, where it's all subliminal messaging in a way that's a little less
I was
overt.
thinking when I was at work, just the colors that are used on packages, and the color has nothing to do with the product at all. And I just thought to myself, what if color was completely absent from all the products? If everything was just in black and white packaging, right? And I thought to myself, like, how boring that would be. Nothing inside the packages would change, right? Not the nutrients, not the taste, not anything, but just people would look at these things like with disgust. If there was like Cheez-Its, if it was in a white box with a black text that said Cheez-Its,
not even Cheez-Its, or
still had if everything still had the design and
cheese flavored graham squares or something like that. If everything
still had the design and creativity and everything looked the same, with the exception of instead of color, everything was black and white or gray. Yeah, just the unlikelihood of people buying things.
Well, I think people would be more aware of, because people get distracted by the colors and lights and stuff like that, right? And so you remove all of that, people suddenly become aware of just how horrible the situation actually is. It's like rows upon rows of high glucose, cornstarch infused stuff. Whatever the meat issues with the,
I can't recall,
preservatives in the meat. That's what it is.
But speaking of groceries and food and what we were just talking about, I'm in the middle of the book Walden by Henry David Thoreau.
Oh, okay.
Where he goes out into the woods and builds his own cabin and kind of lives out there in solidarity, and then every so often goes to town and just kind of goes through his routine. And I just finished his chapter where he met a family who were just like kind of, pretty poor, and he mentions kind of the rat race or just kind of circle that people are in when he's at dinner with them eating, and the guy's a farmer or something, and he doesn't make a lot of money. He makes just enough money to be able to buy, he mentions in the book, luxuries. So this book was written, this experience is from the year 1849, 1850, I think, 48 maybe, and it was published in 1854. Okay? So for us to things that we think we need iPhone, laptop, internet, cable or satellite television, right? At the time, it was like he mentions meat, butter, eggs. He just mentions a few food items. Where Henry David Thoreau, he cultivates his own food. He pretty much just eats beans a lot of the time. But what he gets at is this person is just working so hard to make enough money to be able to buy these things. But if he lived just a little bit simpler, maybe didn't buy or eat meat or that milk or butter and stuff like that. If you just gone simple and say rice and beans, it'd be easier to sustain yourself and have more income. What I'm getting at is this is like people with big ass houses and Mercedes Benz, but they have terrible credit and they're in debt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying, or are you just nodding your head?
I don't really know where you're going with that.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I understand. I guess I didn't really understand the parallel as to...
I didn't verbalize it as well as I could have. I just read it last night.
Yeah, and maybe when I re-listen to this, it'll click a little bit more. But
I
mean, you're just talking about... Because, I mean, I get what you're saying in the sense that, yeah, we have a lot of people today, but I don't really know too many broke people who have Mercedes-Benz that haven't already been impounded yet. Like...
Oh.
I feel like most of them come to their due. They're not able to get to the multiple mansions and multiple cars before they end up losing everything.
I'm not saying that's like everybody. I was just drawing an example where
I think
people overspend where they don't need to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have... just look at vitamins right now. I mean, the amount of people's incomes that are spent on so-called supplements and vitamins in order to help them like achieve proper body chemistry kind of thing. I mean... Really, they're still getting cancer at the same rates that the rest of us are. They're still dying at the same age that the rest of us are, and yet they're, spending thousands of dollars more on these supplements every year than, say, the average American. That's thousands of dollars that could go to something so much more beneficial, right? A trainer or something like that, a gym membership.
Yeah, but it's super, that going back to that book real quick. It's so interesting how things in books from 150 years ago are still relevant today.
The cultural themes, yeah.
Yes. It's like, oh man, that's one of those books where I'm sitting there just like, man, this is so crazy.
Timeless, right? It gets at a certain element of the human or of the American spirit that it's like, yeah. It really resonates no matter what time or age period. It's a good moral story to go back to. It's an American moral story.
Right. Yes. I have one more thing, but did you have anything else on your mind?
No.
You want to keep going, or you want to call it a day?
What's your last thing?
It was just real quick. So we got AT&T Uverse, and we had Uverse before, and then we got DirecTV, and then we're going back to Uverse. Because it's that game similar with cell phones where it's a good deal for about 2 years and then they start jacking up the prices. But then all the competitors, well, we have cut price. These are the deals for new customers. And a new customer is considered somebody who has not been with us in the last 2 years. So even if you've had us before, you can get the new customer deal. And it's just like every 2 years, it seems like we're changing providers for something.
Have you guys thought about going without cable? Just cutting it?
No, because my dad watches. The only thing my dad watches is soccer and the news, and it's all channels that are in Spanish.
Gotcha.
So going without cable, there's like 3 channels in Spanish. But I mean, my dad will have on the sports package, like for the stuff going on in Mexico for soccer, he'll be recording like 4 or 5 games at the same time.
Wow. Sometimes. Oh my goodness. Does he watch them all?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's all he watches.
Dude, the only time I was able to watch that amount of sports in a day was when I was gambling on it.
Really?
Oh my goodness. Because I mean, nowadays, I'll watch the national championship. Fuck Alabama, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'll watch some of the playoff games. Like I'll watch the Patriots play, and when it gets to the AFC and NFC championships, but it's like normal games, just day-to-day games. I don't have time for that.
Like, it doesn't do it for me. I don't care to watch sports on TV unless it's the playoffs.
I can do it as background noise. Like if I'm
friends.
working and background noise, that's fine. But just sitting down and watching a game when there's nothing riding on, it's like,
when my dad is not at work, he is either watching soccer, reading, or at the library.
Wow.
Those are the only things.
That's
and it's not like this isn't like every day for the soccer. It's I think the games happen on the weekends. Yeah. So I don't know how many hours that equates to. Maybe like 6 hours. Not all in one day, but
you should get him life cycle. Keep track of that.
Yeah, I think at night he'll maybe watch a whole game or maybe half of one and pick it up the next day or something. I don't know.
I will binge watch TV shows. I mean that's
different strokes for different folks.
Different strokes for different folks.
But yeah, I'm pumped because now, like, for the first 3 months, we've got all, like, the stars and encore.
Oh, nice.
So it's like, oh, hell yeah. But what I wanted to get at was when I was, a couple years ago, when I sold DirecTV for, like, 7 weeks.
Oh, I remember that.
Fucking sucked.
Yeah.
I hated it.
That was a crisis point.
I hated that so much. It was so fucking stupid. I remember for DirecTV, because DirecTV AT&T bought DirecTV, I think. And when we were doing this, the guy who trained me was like, yeah, AT&T, they're phasing out. They're trying to make an incentive to buy the DirecTV, this and that and this. And I just remember the guy who trained me would tell straight up lies. They're little lies. But it would be like when someone would be like, oh, so like, I mean, I'm with AT&T right now, but I've got all these programs recorded that I want to watch. Like, what will happen to those? Will they get deleted or what? It's like, oh no, it's just like switching out the hard drive in your computer. Like, it'll totally, it totally transfers over. That's a fucking lie. It doesn't happen.
Wow.
It does not happen.
Oh my goodness.
The other thing would be like, yeah, if you got if you need any help, you have your own personal helper person, whatever, that's like specialized for your area. So it'll be the person that installs it, and if you need any help, like you need a new remote or whatever, you call them up and they'll know you by name. It's a special, whatever in your particular area. It's like, that's not fucking true. Like, that is not true. It's just straight up like just like any other call center, you need help with something, and you call. It's a different person every time you call.
What would happen if somebody recorded that conversation?
I don't know.
Like, that sounds like legal stuff right there. If they're promising all this stuff for a sign up or telling you to like say these things, and someone recorded you like saying basically blatant lies.
Yeah. So I'm like, listen to this guy, and the whole I was just like, you're an idiot, but fuck, you're selling shit. And what I've learned is don't waste your time doing shit that you're not into or doing shit just because you want to make money. Like, spend your time doing things that give you enjoyment, right? Because I like tried to be like him and like tried to be theatrical and like really, like conversational. And I just felt to myself like, I don't give a fuck about this.
Yeah.
This is not me.
Oh, totally.
Like being like, I can totally converse with someone, but like trying to do this DirecTV bullshit, I was like, this is so stupid. This dude's stupid. This whole thing is just dumb. And I just did it because to try and make some money, Mm-hmm. But it was just like, I'm rolling my eyes and I'm just like, ugh.
That's why we're on the peripheries of corporate America, because we see just how indoctrinated people can get. People can effing hate their lives if they get sucked into corporate America.
You get sucked in.
Yeah, and I think that's why you're on the periphery.
This is why, because because people are groomed, and I'll use the word brainwash. People are groomed and brainwashed to be a moving part in a greater mechanism. People are taught to be one of the masses, not make too much noise, and just go with the flow and not to question anything.
You sound like a budding anarchist.
No, it's not about anarchy. It's just about like, why just...
Yeah, no,
why would you want to follow everybody else and not take risk? People think risk is a negative word, you know what I'm saying? And not take a chance on yourself. And I'm not saying, for example, if there's somebody that is a W-2 employee and works for somebody else or works for a corporation and they love it, awesome. If you enjoy what you're doing,
absolutely,
that is totally cool.
Yep.
If you only make $40,000 a year and you got to request time off for vacation and you're okay with that, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, just whatever makes you happy, whatever that means.
Fulfilling life, yeah.
Yes. But most people get stuck doing something that they're not into. Most people, I would say, when they're kids, have so much imagination and life, and then they start walking a path that they probably shouldn't be on, but they just go on it anyway because it's either easy or because their dreams have been squandered and they don't think they can do anything else. Or, I mean, there's a million variables.
Crushed by the machine, from an early age. We're told we're part of the mechanism. And that's too, I mean, I felt like there was a certain freedom for us not having cable growing up. Well, I mean, we played outside. We used our imagination. Like, the world was our oyster. We could, I mean, we had to. I mean, and it was great because for me, I saw a world outside of this, like, system, right? Mm-hmm. That you could be independent. My mom owned her own business and stuff like that and was able to raise her kids from home. That was a great model for me growing up. I'm like, wow, somebody's able to choose their own path. Maybe they're not the wealthiest person in the world, but at least they're happy with their life and they're not missing out on those things that they years down the road are going to wish that they had that time back and be able to, like, redo it all. Like, I don't necessarily see those regrets in my parents. Yeah. It's like, what a great model for that. But most families are in that system of, like, they're just a cog in the wheel.
Or they'll tell themselves, I don't like this, but, I mean, I get a company car, so I don't have to pay for gas, but...
They rationalize the perks for, like, the standard of living or your standard of lifestyle.
Yes.
Like, there's a difference between those attachments or whatever, like the facade, and then, like, true happiness. Like, yes. if you're looking forward to going to, because you're going to spend 40 to 60 hours at your place of employment every single week. Like, you better have something positive.
At the rate things are right now, you will be spending 50 years of your life working. I mean, you're not going to retire at the age of 65. That's not going to happen. No. 75 or 80 is what's going to happen. And you're going to be spending your 50 years of your life just working. You may as well do it towards something that you like doing. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I thought of that. And, dude, you can see it sometimes. And you can see it in I saw it in one person in particular for sure that I used to work with. Just the life gets sucked out of him. I heard this on, like, he just hated everything. And I heard this on The Nerdist when there was an example made, like, when you're 30, you have the face that you're born with, and when you're 50, you have the face that you deserve. If you're always angry, you're going to have an angry-looking face.
Interesting.
That's going to be your default.
Yeah.
Angry or happy or depressed or confused or whatever,
That's a good way of putting it.
That was fun. I want to talk more, but I can talk all day in regards to that type of stuff. But
maybe we can come with a little more substance next time.
I think next time. Well, I mean, I think right now we're about good. But yeah, I can talk about all that type of stuff forever, and forever. Anything you want to add?
No.
No. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time. What? It still doesn't meet your approval?